WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
Back. You're watching Beyond World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Jonna.
And I'm Hemkaur Saroya, and on the show today, the UNSC began its closed-door discussions and consultations over the situation between India and Pakistan. This comes hours after Secretary General Antonio Guterres voiced concern over the tensions between the nuclear-armed neighbors being at their highest in years, and also condemning, of course, the awful terror attack and urging maximum restraint. We'll bring you all the latest on this on the show today.
Also on World DNA, from West Asia, Israel's security cabinet has approved the expansion of military operations in Gaza, which includes the conquest of the Palestinian territory. That's what they're calling it. The army called up tens of thousands of reservists for this offensive. We'll bring you the latest on that front. Let's start with the headlines.
Indian armed forces give strong reply after Pakistan violates ceasefire again, resorts to firing from posts across the line of control in several areas in Jammu and Kashmir.
Targeting civilians is unacceptable, and those responsible must be brought to justice through credible lawful means.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urges India and Pakistan for maximum restraint, says a military solution is no solution. This as closed consultations at the UN Security Council end without any clear outcome.
Targeting civilians.
Russia pledges its full support to New Delhi in the fight against terrorism as President Vladimir Putin dials Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Putin emphasizes that the perpetrators, of Pahalgam attack must be brought to justice.
Houthi media reports multiple Israeli airstrikes in Yemen. 6 airstrikes hit the port of Hodeidah, while one struck Bajil district. Strikes come a day after the Iran-backed rebels targeted Israel's main airport.
US military personnel reinforced barbed wire fencing along the border with Mexico as Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rejects Donald Trump's offer to send US troops to combat drug trafficking in the country.
Northern Iraq covered in orange haze as dust storm sweeps through the city of Kirkuk. Environment Ministry warns the country can expect to suffer a rising number of dust days in coming decades.
Ford has pulled its annual guidance, warning Trump's tariffs could cost the automaker $1.5 billion this year. The company is suspending exports to China, slashing costs and bracing for rising EV losses, even as first quarter profits fall sharply.
Zhao Xintong becomes the first Chinese player to win the World Snooker Championship. The 28-year-old beats three-time winner Mark Williams at the Crucible Theatre.
Indian star Shah Rukh Khan makes his Met Gala debut in New York. Khan walks the Met Gala carpet in a black suit with gold accessories and a walking cane. Now, the United Nations Security Council held closed-door consultations amid the escalating tensions between India and Pakistan.
And this is, of course, over the terror attack in Pahalgam that killed 26 people. Now, this is just hours after the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres urged the neighboring countries to exercise maximum restraint to avoid any further deterioration of geopolitical stability.
It is also essential, especially at this critical hour, to avoid a military confrontation that could easily spin out of control. Now is the time for maximum restraint and stepping back from the brink. That has been my message in my ongoing outreach with both countries.
Now, the UNSC meet came after Pakistan, as a non-permanent member, sought to brief member states about the current situation, which it highlighted presents a serious risk of escalation and poses a threat to both regional and international peace and security. According to sources, the consultations ended with no outcome.
Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin called Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and extended full support to India in the fight against terrorism. According to an official statement, he emphasized that the perpetrators of the heinous attack and their supporters must be brought to justice.
On the other hand, in Islamabad, the Foreign Minister of Iran, Syed Abbas Araghchi, called on Pakistan President Asif Ali Zardari to discuss regional security situation. Araghchi is said to have also met with the country's Chief of Army Staff, Asim Munir.
Meanwhile, India continues to assess its options in response to the April 22nd attack. Prime Minister Modi held a high-level security review with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. He separately met Defence Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh, Home Secretary Govind Mohan and other key officials.
All right, for more on this, our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us more details. Listen to this.
The closed-door United Nations Security Council meeting ended without any outcomes. We know that no joint statement releases were issued after the closed-door meeting. The meeting was requested by the Pakistani side. Pakistan, being a non-permanent member of the UNSC, had requested the meeting after the situation in the Indian subcontinent deteriorated because of the Pahalgam terror attack by the Pakistani terrorists. Now, we know that Pakistan is a non-permanent member of the UNSC and requested the meeting. And this is not the first time that such a meeting has happened. In 2019, after India removed the special status for the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir, there was a closed-door meeting. And again, that meeting ended without any major outcomes. But it is a Pakistani attempt to try to internationalize Kashmir and rake the old India-Pakistan question. But we know that there are no takers. India, of course, has reached out to the members of the United Nations Security Council, both the non-permanent members and the permanent members. Siddhant Sibal for WION in New Delhi.
Days after India's decision to keep the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance, locals living near two dams on the Chenab River say that the water is flowing at its lowest level.
Now, according to reports, India has briefly stopped the flow of water through the dam on the Chenab River. Sources indicate that water flow has been restricted through both the hydropower projects as well. Government sources further suggest that similar restrictions could be imposed on the Kishan Ganga Dam on the river Jhelum.
While there has been no official confirmation on the restriction of water so far from the government, the massive drop in the water level suggests that the gates of the Salal Dam and Baglehar were shut. The Indus Basin system supports over 237 million people in Pakistan. 80% of the country's cultivated land relies on water from the Indus Basin. Major cities like Karachi, Lahore and Multan, they draw water directly from Indus Basin rivers. Hydropower plants, Tarbela and Mangla, are also dependent on Indus Basin rivers. In fact, Indus Basin rivers contribute nearly 25% to Pakistan's GDP, supporting the production of key crops such as wheat, rice, sugarcane and cotton. A largely agrarian economy, Pakistan has been heavily reliant on the Indus Basin's waters for the past 65 years, with no alternative source of water. The suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty has left 80% of Pakistan in a precarious position.
Now, the Indian Ministry of Home Affairs has directed several states to conduct civil defence mock drills on the 7th of May.
And this is to assess preparedness in the event of a hostile attack. The directive comes in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack on the 22nd of April, where terrorists based out of and trained in Pakistan killed 26 civilians, almost all of them tourists, in Baisaran Valley, Jammu and Kashmir. The drills will involve the air raid warning sirens across selected areas to test public alert systems. Civilians, including students, will be trained on how to respond during emergencies such as aerial strikes or bombings. An updated evacuation plan will be rolled out and rehearsed to ensure timely and safe movement of people in case of emergencies.
Now, government sources suggested that the upcoming civil defence drills are not a cause for alarm but a preparedness exercise. This exercise is aimed at familiarising the public, specifically younger generations, with standard wartime protocols. The sources said that the Home Ministry has emphasised that the mock drills are part of routine readiness efforts and there is no need to panic.
And it's over to West Asia now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that his military will launch an intensive operation in Gaza.
This in order to defeat Hamas and rescue the remaining hostages. This after the Israeli Security Cabinet approved plans to seize the Gaza Strip and to stay in the Palestinian territory.
Last night we stayed up late in the cabinet and decided on an intensified operation in Gaza. It was the Chief of Staff's recommendation to proceed, as he put it, toward the defeat of Hamas, and along the way he believes this will also help us rescue the hostages. And I agree with him. We are not letting go of this effort, and we will not give up on anyone.
Netanyahu stopped short of detailing how much of the enclave's territory would be seized, but emphasized that Israeli soldiers won't go into Gaza, launch raids and then retreat. He said the intention is the opposite of that. The new plan also calls for hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to move to Gaza's south. The decision to expand the operation was immediately hailed by Israeli government hardliners.
We are conquering Gaza, clearing it out, and taking control of every area we enter. Finally, after a year and a half of that, I shout this in writing, in speeches, on every stage. We are taking control of the humanitarian aid so that it does not become logistical supply for Hamas.
However, senior Israeli security official reportedly said the plan would not be implemented until after US President Donald Trump's visit to the region between the 13th and the 16th of May, to provide a window of opportunity to Hamas to agree to a new ceasefire and the hostage release deal.
Israel's Security Cabinet on Monday also approved the possibility of humanitarian distribution in Gaza, which has been under an Israeli blockade for more than 2 months now, while Hamas said the new Israeli framework for aid delivery in Gaza amounted to political blackmail.
In Washington, D.C., US President Donald Trump said he will help get food to Palestinians in Gaza when he was asked about Israeli plans for an expanded offensive in the territory.
We're going to help the people of Gaza get some food. People are starving, and we're going to help them get some food. A lot of people are making it very, very bad. If you look, Hamas is making it impossible because they're taking everything that's brought in, but we're going to help the people of Gaza because they're being treated very badly by Hamas.
Furthermore, Donald Trump said he held a good and productive phone call with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and the two leaders discussed the war in Gaza, while Erdogan's office said that the Turkish leader highlighted the gravity of the humanitarian crisis in the Strip.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has expressed alarm at Israel's plans to seize the Gaza Strip.
This will inevitably lead to countless more civilians killed and the further destruction of Gaza. What's imperative now is an end to the violence, not more civilian deaths and destruction. Gaza is and must remain an integral part of a future Palestinian state. The Secretary General continues to call for an immediate, permanent ceasefire. The hostages must be released immediately and unconditionally.
The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Gaza warned that the humanitarian situation in the Strip is worsening as Israel's aid blockade enters its 9th week. Meanwhile, Gaza's Civil Defense Agency said 2 Israeli airstrikes killed at least 19 people in the North Gaza region on Monday. Iran has unveiled a new ballistic missile, Qasim Basir, with a range of 1,200 kilometers.
And this comes at a time of heightened tensions between Iran, Israel and the United States. Take a look at these images.
If we are attacked and a war is imposed on us, we will respond with strength. We will target their interests and bases, and we will observe no restraint or limitation in doing so. We have no hostility toward neighboring countries. They are our brothers. However, US bases will be our targets.
And US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has ordered a 20% cut in the number of top officers. This according to a memo that was signed by him.
Hegseth has directed senior Pentagon leadership to cut the number of 4-star generals and admirals by at least 20% across the US military. The memo also directs the Pentagon to cut the number of general officers in the National Guard by 20% and to cut the total number of general and flag officers in the military by 10%. There are currently about 900 general and flag officers across the US military. In his memo, Hegseth wrote that the cuts are a critical step towards removing redundant force structure to optimize and streamline leadership. In a video posted on social media, Hegseth said, "More generals and admirals does not lead to more success," quote unquote, stressing that this is not a slash and burn exercise meant to punish high-ranking officers.
Now, Hegseth had argued before, including during his confirmation hearing, that there are too many senior generals in the military. At his confirmation hearing, he stated that there was an inverse relationship between the size of staffs and victory on the battlefield.
At the time, he said there were 44 4-star positions in the military. He has since removed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Navy's top admiral, and the director of the National Security Agency. The Pentagon has been considering making significant cuts to the top of the military amid an administration-wide effort to shrink the federal government. That includes potentially consolidating combatant commands, such as merging European Command and African Command.
We can do that. That'd be awesome again.
Now, US President Donald Trump has signed a new batch of executive orders.
And these include new limitations on a form of biological research his administration says caused the COVID-19 pandemic through a lab leak in China. Trump has also signed an executive order that aims to reduce the time it takes to approve pharmaceutical plants in the country. And this as part of new regulations to encourage domestic manufacturing.
Now, these orders were signed by Trump during an event in the Oval Office. As the US president signed the orders, he said he would be making some important announcements in the coming weeks on the cost of drugs as well as pharmaceutical tariffs.
We're going to have a big announcement next week on some of this kind of thing, but more related to costs. the costs of medicines and drugs, because we're being ripped off, as you know, very badly, being ripped off compared to the rest of the world.
The US will now also halt funding in certain countries for gain-of-function experiments aimed at enhancing the properties of pathogens. This as Trump signed an executive order on Monday, local time. According to the White House, the ban on federal funding of research applies to China and Iran, among other countries. Gain-of-function research is defined as scientific research on an infectious agent or toxin by enhancing its ability to cause disease or making it more transmissible. It is used to study enhancements of pathogens such as avian influenza, SARS, and the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome or MERS viruses.
So it can leak out like from Wuhan, and a lot of people think that. I think I said that right from day one.
Now, according to the White House fact sheet, the measure is designed to drastically reduce the potential for lab-related incidents involving the gain-of-function research like that conducted on bat coronaviruses in China by the EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
In other developments, the Trump administration has pushed forward in defending US rules easing access to the abortion drug mifepristone from a legal challenge that began during former President Joe Biden's administration. The US Department of Justice, in a brief filed in Texas federal court, urged a judge to dismiss the lawsuit by 3 Republican-led states on procedural grounds.
While the filing does not discuss the merits of the state's case, it suggests the Trump administration is in no rush to drop the government's defense of mifepristone, which is used in more than 60% of the abortion cases in the US. While campaigning last year, Trump did say that he did not plan to ban or restrict access to the drug, whereas in 2024, the US Supreme Court rejected a bid by anti-abortion groups and doctors to restrict access to the drug, finding that they lacked legal standing to challenge the regulations which were put in place by the US Food and Drug Administration.
The official end of the 9-day mourning period for Pope Francis on Sunday marks the countdown to the Papal conclave starting on the 7th of May at the Vatican Elaborate.
Now, of course, elaborate preparations are afoot to elect the Supreme Pontiff, the spiritual leader of some 1.3 billion Catholics worldwide. Here's more.
A military parade, street parties and a balcony appearance by Britain's royal family, they're all part of UK celebrations of 80 years since the end of World War II.
Now, the Prince and Princess of Wales' children joined King Charles, Queen Camilla and veterans to watch a military parade, while the 76-year-old monarch and other working royals watched the military parade from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Thousands of people lined the streets of London to witness the procession of 1,300 members of the armed forces and NATO allies.
The procession commemorates the service of those who fought to bring peace to Europe and the rest of the world. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis made a rare public appearance with their parents William and Kate to see the ceremony.
This procession will culminate in a flypast featuring aerobatic team, the Red Arrows, and 23 current and historic military aircraft.
Celebrating the VE Day. So that's why I'm here. That's the Commonwealth country. I'm from Ghana. We came to help, and we have all the Commonwealth country came to help. That's why I'm here. So I'm here for the celebration of VE Day.
So I came down yesterday and I've stayed overnight with my friend John. I wouldn't miss it for the world. It's going to be such a special day for the country. The military, the big military display, and we're going to see our wonderful King, Queen, and the rest of the royal family.
On 8th of May 1945, war in Europe came to an end. May 8th is observed in many countries, including Britain, France and the United States, as the date when the unconditional surrender of Nazi Germany took effect in 1945. In towns and cities around the world, people marked victory with street parties, dancing and singing, after the then Prime Minister Winston Churchill addressed the nation to announce the ceasefire. A radio news flash on the 8th of May announced that war had ended and that Victory in Europe Day would be a national holiday. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. We will be back on the other side. Indian lawmakers have alleged that social media influencers are working against the interests of the country following the ghastly Pahalgam terror attack. We bring you all the details on that.
The Supreme Court of India has uploaded the full process of appointing judges to both the High Courts and the Supreme Court on its website. This in a bid to enhance transparency in the judiciary. Details on the other side. Stay tuned.
Talking the future of finance.
Dive into the world of tokenization with me
as we yield the power of tokenization.
Discover the future of
ownership, where I decode, demystify tokenization for you.
Empowering the tokenized revolution.
Get ready to dive for an in-depth look at tokenization.
Busting the myths around tokenization.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet only on WION.
From protests to rejecting the CFA franc to condemnation worldwide, alliance of the Sahel nations of Burkina Faso, Niger and Mali now expand their Confederal Bank as other countries in the region, including Togo, intimate their interests to join the group. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu promises to better equip his troops to combat the insurgency in the country's north, which has surged in recent weeks. And scientists create one anti-venom to treat snake bites using antibodies from a California man's blood. Tim Freed has injected himself with snake venom 654 times over 18 years. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
viewers. You're watching World DNA with Haim and I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Indian Armed Forces give strong reply after Pakistan violates ceasefire again. Resorts to firing from posts across the line of control in several areas in Jammu and Kashmir.
India's Home Ministry asks all states and union territories to conduct civil defense mock drills tomorrow. First such drills since 1971 war to be conducted across 244 districts.
The Supreme Court of India publishes assets of serving judges in a bid to transparency, also uploads full process of appointing judges to High Court and the Supreme Court.
Houthi media reports multiple Israeli airstrikes in Yemen. 6 airstrikes hit the port of Hodeidah, while one struck Bahil district. Strikes come a day after the Iran-backed rebels targeted Israel's main airport, Ben Gurion.
US military personnel reinforced barbed wire fencing along the border with Mexico as Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum rejects Donald Trump's offer to send US troops to combat drug trafficking in the country.
Northern Iraq covered in orange haze as dust storm sweeps through the city of Kirkuk. Environment Ministry warns the country can expect to suffer a rising number of such dust days in coming decades.
PwC is cutting around 1,500 US jobs, about 2% of its workforce, citing low attrition and strategic shifts as the firm continues to restructure globally.
Zhao Xintong becomes the first Chinese player to win the World Snooker Championship. The 28-year-old beats 3-time winner Mark Williams at the Crucible Theatre.
Indian movie star Shah Rukh Khan makes his Met Gala debut in New York, walks the Met carpet in a black suit with gold accessories and a walking cane.
Indian lawmakers have raised concerns about some of the content on social media following the terror attack in Pahalgam.
In a statement released on Monday, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Information Technology said that some social media influencers and platforms appear to be working against the interests of the country.
Now, the committee added that content shared online after this deadly attack in Pahalgam could incite violence and create further tensions. The committee has asked the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology and the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to report on action taken under the law, demanding actions against social media accounts.
The committee cited 2 existing laws, the Information Technology Act of 2000 and the 2021 Rules for Digital Media and Intermediaries. Both laws give the government power to act against online platforms that are found to be hosting harmful or unlawful content.
The committee has asked the 2 ministries to provide a response by May 8th, 2025, and this will include any action considered or taken to ban or restrict social media accounts or pages involved.
Now, Pakistan is playing with fire. Days after the terror attack in Kashmir left 26 dead, Islamabad is flexing its military muscle now.
They're doing that with missile tests and rhetoric to mask its fatal vulnerabilities. The world watches as Islamabad scrambles for attention through military bravado, knowing well that a war with India is a gamble it simply cannot afford, as history suggests itself. While India towers as an economic and military powerhouse, Pakistan stands weakened, internally divided, and on the verge of collapse.
A full-scale confrontation would not only obliterate its already fragile systems, but also expose the myth of parity between the two nations. Let's just break down the hard facts that make war a suicidal fantasy for Pakistan.
Now, in a bid to project resolve, Pakistan has conducted a second missile test since the 22nd of April. The Fateh missile was tested as part of exercise Indus, but these launches are more about optics than any kind of capability that Pakistan may suggest to have at this point. A surface-to-surface weapon with a range of just 120 kilometers is nothing more than a desperate stunt. The timing is deliberate, purpose transparent, to bluff its way out of a real confrontation.
All right, let's also get real here. India's military strength outclasses Pakistan's on every front. Since the 2019 Balakot strikes, New Delhi has aggressively upgraded its arsenal. Newer, deadlier weapon systems, air defense systems, Rafale jets, cyber warfare capabilities, and naval dominance.
India's massive troop strength and battle-tested command structure give it a decisive edge in any prolonged engagement. In contrast, Pakistan's outdated fleet and limited resources would crumble under sustained pressure.
Ratings agency Moody's has made it clear rising tensions hurt Pakistan far more than India. India's robust $3.7 trillion economy can absorb the impact of a conflict. Pakistan, however, is already on IMF life support. Skyrocketing inflation, plummeting foreign reserves, and a battered rupee make even short-term conflict financially fatal for Islamabad. A war would mean economic suicide.
And then, of course, there is India's powerful geopolitical move. After India announced to put the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance in response to the Pahalgam terror attack, the locals living close to two dams on the Chenab River say that the water is flowing at its lowest in the river. According to sources, the flow of water has been restricted through both Baglihar and Salal hydropower projects.
This is a clear signal. India holds the high ground, and water, Pakistan's lifeline, is now a potent tool in India's strategic arsenal.
Pakistan is essentially battling itself. Imran Khan's party refuses to cooperate with the government, demanding his immediate release from prison. The political instability is tearing the nation apart from inside, a country at war with its own leadership, and it has no business dreaming of an external conflict at this point.
While Islamabad postures against India, the real war is within. The Baloch Liberation Army has launched major attacks, and former CM Akhtar Mengal has threatened protests outside army cantonments. The call for justice in Balochistan is rising, and the army is losing control.
War is clearly not an option for Pakistan, or at least it should not be. It's an invitation to disintegration. India won't just win militarily as it has in the past several times. It will break Pakistan economically, diplomatically as well. Islamabad must choose wisely before bluffing in this way again.
All right. And in a bid to enhance transparency in the judiciary, the Supreme Court of India has uploaded the full process of appointing judges to both the High Courts and the Supreme Court on its website.
It has also published the assets of 21 of its 33 serving judges in accordance with a full court decision to place the relevant details in public domain.
Now, a release by the court said that the statements of assets of judges already received are being uploaded, adding that the statements of assets of other judges will be uploaded as and when current statement of assets is received.
The historic decision to make the asset declarations of its judges public was taken by the full court on the 1st of April. The publication comes a few days before the superannuation of Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna on the 13th of May. The top court has also placed the complete process of appointments to the High Courts and the Supreme Court in public domain. It has also explained the involvement of different authorities like the state governments, central government and the collegium system, in addition to the general process.
The Supreme Court has also shared the actual proposals approved by the collegium during the last 2.5 years. These proposals include a detailed list of the judges who were appointed to various high courts between the 9th of November 2022 and the 5th of May 2025.
The list contains important information such as the name of the judge, the concerned high court, and whether the judge was selected from judicial service or legal practice. Moreover, the database clearly states whether the judge is related to any sitting or retired judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court. The publication is seen as an attempt to increase transparency, public understanding and trust in the appointment process. The US and Philippines routinely conduct annual combat drills amid rising tensions with China.
Now, during the annual Balikatan exercises, the warships from both countries glide in formation with an aim to enhance interoperability and demonstrate the strength of the two alliances.
But this time around, before the mock assault drill could even start between the US and Philippines, a warship unexpectedly sank before it could be sunk as part of the planned exercise. The BRP Miguel Malvar, which is a World War II Philippine Navy ship, was assigned to be a target in the combat exercises between the American and Philippine forces. However, just hours before the mock assault, the 80-year-old vessel accidentally sank on its own.
The decommissioned naval vessel sank about 55 kilometers off the western Philippine province. According to the Philippine military, nobody on board was on board when the ship sank.
This particular drill was supposed to sink a ship as seen in the images. In May of last year, US and Philippine troops came together to sink a dummy vessel in war games.
Now, in the recent drills with about 14,000 US and Filipino forces participants, mock battle scenes which have been staged so far include the retaking of an island from hostile forces.
On Sunday, US, Australian and Philippine forces practiced retaking an island from hostile forces in the coastal town of Balabac in western Palawan province.
Now, the uncertainty around President Donald Trump's tariffs are starting to push US firms to suspend financial outlook.
Ford Motor and toy maker Mattel have suspended their financial guidance, citing tariffs as the main reason. Ford Motor Company halted its full-year financial projections and cut 2025 adjusted profits before interest and taxes by approximately $1.5 billion. Ford is looking at using bonding transportation to protect auto parts from import levies and offset $1 billion of the company's total tariff impact, which it says is around $2.5 billion.
Now, Ford suspended giving any clarity on its earlier prediction for adjusted profits of up to $8.5 billion for this year. The firm cited potential industry-wide supply chain disruptions due to tariffs and the possibility that levies may rise further as reasons to cancel the full-year guidance.
Similarly, in response to Trump's plans to levy taxes on imported toys, Mattel dropped its projection for a return to sales growth in 2025. After posting better than expected first quarter earnings, the toy manufacturer forecast in February that 2025 would see a 3% increase in sales of Barbie dolls, Hot Wheels cars and other products. And this came after 3 years of stagnant or decreasing revenue. Profits were expected to go up as well, but the toy maker says forecasting in the current scenario of tariff uncertainty seems difficult. The tariff turbulence is reshaping corporate forecasts. The United States trade policy is putting pressure on the global trading system. Businesses and consumers alike are less confident as a result of the widespread tariff uncertainty.
While around half of the S&P 500 have released their quarterly reports, businesses have struggled to give clear guidance due to the uncertain trade climate. Companies and investors have been caught off guard in the frequent shifts and reversals in US policy, which makes future planning a real challenge. Now, the recent decision by Moody's Investors Services to downgrade Pakistan's credit rating has sent ripples of concern through economic circles, further highlighting the nation's precarious financial situation.
And this downgrade serves as a stark reminder of the significant challenges that Pakistan faces in its pursuit of economic stability. The implications of this negative outlook are far-reaching, casting a shadow over growth prospects, fiscal consolidation efforts, inflation management, foreign exchange reserves, and external financing avenues. The Moody's downgrade underscores a confluence of factors that are expected to exert considerable downward pressure on Pakistan's economy. Several key areas are particularly vulnerable. The prevailing economic uncertainty, exacerbated by the downgraded credit rating, which is likely to impede Pakistan's growth trajectory. Lower investor confidence, both domestic and international, can lead to reduced investment, hindering economic expansion and job creation. Furthermore, the focus on stabilizing the economy and managing debt obligations may necessitate stringent fiscal measures.
While crucial for long-term sustainability, these measures such as reduced government spending and increased taxation can further dampen short-term economic activity. This delicate balancing act between fostering growth and achieving fiscal consolidation becomes increasingly challenging in this environment. The downgrade is also anticipated to intensify inflationary pressures. A weaker currency potentially triggered by reduced investor confidence and difficulties in securing external financing would make imports more expensive, fueling domestic inflation. This will, of course, disproportionately affect the populace, particularly those with lower incomes.
World number one Yannick Sinner will return to action this week after the end of his 3-month doping ban.
Now, speaking ahead of his home tournament, the Italian Open, Sinner admitted that it was quote-unquote good news for him that he did not miss a Grand Slam tournament.
For me personally, good news that there are not the Grand Slams included. For sure, of course, it's